Alright, this is the second tutorial in modeling with textured pieces. So basically at the previous tutorial I went through, I made some very simple shapes and I textured them. I also got them ready so that I could move them around and rearrange them into new objects. So basically at this point I'm just going to actually be constructing as if I were building this thing in the real world, except for I don't need any materials other than just rotating these objects. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the material editor. And I'm going to bring over a new standard material because what I want to do is actually throw my reference in here so that I have it as something visual to look at. So let's make a plane 100 by 100. I'm going to set the length segments to 1 and height length and width to 1. Assign this material. Oh, hit create. So now there's a plane out there in the world. Assign the material to it, and then set it to show realistic material in viewport. Okay. Alright, here's that plane. Let's change. I'm going to set this to shaded so I don't have shadows floating around. And then here in the front view, I'm going to hit F3 to make it shaded, F4 to show edges, and G to turn off the grid. I'm going to use my angle, turn on my angle snap, and then rotate this 90 degrees. I'm just going to kind of move this over to the side. Maybe make it a little bit bigger. Move it back a ways. And do, oops, object properties. Backface cull. Turn off show frozen and gray and hit OK. Alright. Then I'm just going to freeze my selection. Okay, so now I'm going to start building my weapon rack. So if I was to look here in the front, I think I'm going to start with the large beam. I'm going to move these two guys over to the side. I'm going to actually move all three of them to the side. What am I talking about? 1, 2, 3. Okay. Let's start with our first beam. Move him over. Alright. And I'm just going to set two beams apart from each other, just like that. I'm going to take the plank and I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees and move him over as well. And put him up so maybe he's about 80 centimeters off the ground. I'm going to start using all of my views here. There's my front, so they're just kind of touching a little bit. There we go. And next I'm going to go ahead and just clone him up. So one thing you notice is that the textures are the same, as you see exactly the same patterning. So why don't we take our beam here, we're just going to rotate it 180 degrees. So that the texturing is a little bit different on that side. Alright, that way we're not going to see the same patterning everywhere. You notice the same thing happening with this post, so why don't we turn this guy 180 degrees as well. So now the same texture imagery isn't on both sides of them. Okay. Why don't we take this and we're just going to take these two beams here and we're going to move those over to the other side. So we'll just clone them over. Now I'm just cloning these as copies. I'm going to rotate them 180 degrees. So let's look at from above. Do we see the same? Nope, we do not. Perfect. Okay. Alright, so we kind of got the start of our weapon rack. I'm going to go ahead and bring over another one of these guys. I'm going to do this from above. Let's drag him over like this. Actually, get rid of that one. Let's do this from the left. I'm going to take this piece and move it over. I want to get kind of that angle of them coming through. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to rotate this guy. Let's say 35 degrees. I'm going to switch this to local. I'm just kind of slide him down a little bit. And I'm going to come in here and I'm going to, in element, I'm just going to select the whole thing and I'm going to turn on my slice plane. I'm going to rotate it so that's laying flat. And then just move that down to 0 and slice. And so now I can take this geometry and get rid of it. And if I look where he's intersecting these other pieces, I can get rid of that as well. So he's intersect. It's going to cut right across here. So why don't I just remove this loop? So that would be up in the modeling. Loops, I've already popped that out. So I can just move it right there. Pull these guys in. Go into slice plane. Move it over here. Rotate it 90 degrees. And then slice. So now, I can delete that, and I can delete this other element from right over here. One thing we want to watch out for when we're doing this, we don't want to accidentally see through it. So maybe we'll just take this whole beam, and we'll do a slight push on it. Push takes geometry, and it moves it in by a numeric amount. You gotta be careful how much you do it, because we did chamfer it. So maybe push isn't the right way to go. Maybe the right thing to do is if we select all the polys, but then from above, maybe we'll just grab these verts from the side, and we're just going to move them over just a little bit, so that, see where the little bevel's happening on the larger post? We'll just move this guy over a little bit, so it kind of sits in. It'll add a nice little bit of depth to it. The fact that that beam doesn't perfectly match. Alright, there we go. So that's one post, and then we'll need to do another one. So why don't we do this? I'm just going to switch the movement back to view. I'm going to hold shift and drag this over as a copy and say OK. Let's take a look at that one. Double check where he lines up. And then on this guy, let's go and open up Unwrap UVW. I'm going to open the UV editor and go to post. There's the color. There's the textures. You can see there, what's great is when I changed it, you see that it changed to match. So it matches the aspect ratio of the texture we baked. I'm just going to switch this to vert, and I think because of the way I UV this, I should be able to just slide this up and change where that texture sits, as long as I don't go outside. And it was pretty straight up, and so that worked okay. Convert to edit poly. There we go. So I could select both of these guys, and if I go to rotate, and rotate them 180 degrees, I could just take that and move both of those back a little bit. Excuse me there. And move it and hook it in. There we go. Can interpenetrate a little bit. Alright, so here we go. We got our weapon racks looking really good. I'm just going to take my post here, and I'll do this from the side here again. I'm just going to move it over. Let's double check our reference. Okay, yeah, they just kind of have a center beam. Perfect. Okay. Let's just take this and move it over. Oops, I gotta hold shift when I do it because I want to clone it. There we go. Copy. And I'll rotate this. What is it, 35? There we go. Put it in place. Again, I don't want the UVs to look exactly, I want to be able to not necessarily see exactly the same UVs on it. I'd like to get some variety. So maybe I'll take this piece and rotate it 180 degrees and then slide it back over. There we go. So now we don't see any patterning from the UVs always showing up exactly the same. Alright, our last step is going to be, well, getting ahead of myself, definitely not our last step. Alright, let's take one of our posts here. I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. And then rotate that 90 degrees. Move it over here. I'm just going to lower that so it sits down beneath everything else. There we go. Alright, so what I want to do here, that's too long, and I don't necessarily want to cut it at all. So I could just try putting an FFD on and adjusting the size of it there, grabbing the control points and moving those in. And so what this is going to do, it is going to take that texture and it is going to kind of compress down the texture. So we're going to have to see, is it going to look weird or is it going to look okay? Because we don't want to draw attention to the fact that it's the same texture being stretched there. Top level 4. Right, because it is kind of a generic wood and it's down there at the bottom, I think that still reads well. So we're just going to clone this over to the other side as well. And double check how that looks from above. I think that looks pretty good. Center this one a little bit. Alright, so that's looking pretty good for my weapon rack. If I want to get any additional details, I certainly could. I don't necessarily need that post. Some of those other versions had little posts in them. I could certainly come in and take this and add it. I don't have a crossbeam at the bottom, so I could definitely go in and add one of those. If I wanted to take this beam and just kind of clone it over there with the rest, I could rotate it around. Oops, let's get our angle snap back on. Oops, looks like I got a slight rotation there. There we go. Okay. Rotate this 90 degrees. Say OK. And just kind of figure out where I might want this. If I wanted something that was going to kind of help hold the spears in place a little better, maybe I would take it and kind of set it down here at the bottom, perhaps. There we go. A little bit of additional support there. Let's see. I want to get another one of these beams over on the other side, so I'm just going to hold Shift and rotate it as a copy, and I'm just going to move this piece over to kind of line up with the rest, and then we'll just double check its position here. Just clone that guy over. Okay. Let's take a look here at our reference. What do we got? That's kind of post coming along. We really just, if we could get one sort of additional post in there, I think that would be good at the bottom. So let's kind of work that guy in. Let's go back over here. What are we missing? I don't want that guy. Alright, let's just grab one of these guys and rotate him 90 degrees. And then we'll move him down to the bottom. Just kind of sort of set him so he's kind of slightly crashing in there. And again, I'm going to do a little FFD. We're going to make a slight adjustment to make this guy kind of fit in there the way we want. I'm not being 100% scientific with this. I'm just kind of crashing these guys in together. Alright, so from here, I now have a weapon rack. So let's get out of that top level. Okay, so I'm going to select all these guys and hide everything else. I now have this weapon rack, so if I kind of look from above, I'm just going to kind of move to kind of center it here. I need to raise it up so the bottom feet are sitting. Okay, there we go. So I have all these different pieces. What I want to do to finish this off is I'm going to make a brand new object. I'm going to make a giant box out here in the world, and I'm going to just zero it out. I made it in perspective, so it has, now that I zeroed it out, it has no position change, no rotation change, no scale change. And I'm going to convert this into an edit poly. And now I'm going to go into attach. I'm going to click on attach list. I'm going to select all of these. These are every single item that is currently visible. I hid all the other ones. And now if I just select the box itself and delete it and go to the top level, I now have a weapon rack that I built out of those mapped pieces. Now what does this get me? Well, it gets me an object that has more textural detail inside of it because I'm using one texture that has a lot more pixel depth to it. The alternative would have been I build this out of primitives and then I take those primitives and I start to unwrap it. Even if I wanted to take this object and create a very unique texture set for the entire thing, at least at this point I do have a version that has been unwrapped, and I could come in here and in Polygon, I could take it and I could pack all of the individual pieces in here. Of course, some of them got scaled and adjusted, so you probably would have to go in and do a slight relax on those various different pieces inside of there. Right? And then you could take that into Painter and you could redo it. Now, I'm not going to do that because I think that's a waste of texture memory. So I'm just going to go to the top level and delete this one. I'm going to keep working with this guy because this guy utilizes one texture, but it has all of this detail inside of it. Right? The other version would have a lot less pixel detail baked into it. So I'm just going to call this weapon rack. Oops, apparently I hit caps lock. Weapon rack. And then I'm going to save it. I could also do file merge, and I can merge in the weapons that I made and make them look like they're hanging off of here. I suppose one final thing that you could do is you could take the individual beams here. If I rotate that 90 degrees, I'm going to clone it as an element so it's still sitting in here. I could take these different parts and I can move them over to kind of create a little bit more of a something that you can actually hang stuff on, because I guess I do realize now that we missed that very important part in this process. Turn on my slice plane, rotate 90 degrees, kind of move it over here because I just want to slice it right there because I want to get rid of all these other polygons on this guy. Oops, I got to be in polygon mode to select polygons. There we go. Turn on slice plane one more time. Move it over and slice this one as well. And then I can take this piece and move it over here, rotate it, and just slide it over. And then from above, just kind of shift them a little bit. And so, yeah, here's the final step. The real final step is we need to put in little pegs to hold our posts in place. Looks like I could probably grab this element on the back end of this and pull it in so it's not poking out the back. Okay. So now I can just take these guys and clone them over. And you can go in, you'll probably need to adjust these for whatever width you need for your different weapons. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's get a couple more of these guys in here. And then I don't need that one. And then just so that, because right now you got this spacing of all these guys going exactly the same way, I'm just going to rotate them a little bit just to get some variety in how they sit there, so that they all don't sit exactly the same way. And then I'll grab all of those and just move them up to the top. Alright, now we have a weapon rack. I knew there was something missing, and I was totally drawing a blank on it. Now, if you want to see how many polygons it is, you can go over here to Utilities, and there's a tool. You may have to click on more to find it, but it's Polygon Counter. It'll tell you how many polygons you have. So this is set to count triangles. This is 2,000 polygons. So if you're getting high on your texture budget, you could lose the slight bevel on those little pegs. So, all right, that's it. That is my weapon rack.